going on, guys? Welcome back to RC Everyday. So I know a lot of folks, the channel's been kind of stale. We haven't built any rat rods since back February or so when I finished up the green one. And that's due to me moving and not really having my own place right now. I don't have a shop. I don't have access to my welder or anything that I did before. So it's been very difficult to do those kind of projects, unfortunately. But I've had this body sitting around for a little while. Honestly, I don't know where the file came from. I don't have any information on it. It's out there. I got the front end from, I think Rob gave me that, and the body came from somewhere else. Somebody didn't finish a project, and luckily though, that's where we got the frame rail. And the person that did this actually, was working with them to help them figure out the dimensions and stuff for what the look they were going for. So I think we can work with the chassis rails that we got. I've got axle, I've got front axle, everything. We've got rear doors, we got main doors, we got a windshield frame for it. I've got a couple other sets of these fenders. These are from the 1/8 scale 32 Roadster that I did for the very first rat rod. Another set of those. I've got a brand new set of those as well, still attached together. I've got the rear fenders as well. I don't know, they take a lot of work, a lot of body work to attach the rear fenders, and I don't really know the look I want to go for yet. And I've got more scale things to confuse our plan a little bit even further. But yeah, I painted this body this blue color. This is a satin blue. I don't even remember where the can is. It's been so long. It's already been wet sanded and it's got black and red underneath it, done exactly like I would do it. So I went ahead and put this as the final color. It's set for a few months now, so it's ready to sand down. I'd really like to get that looking right. I don't have a separate grill for it, don't believe. But that's why I had this front end. It's for this specific print file. It's got the grill. We can take the fenders off. We can use the fenders. We can run open engine bay. I just haven't found the right piece to spark this yet, to get this build kicked off. And I've got some more tires and wheels. So you've seen everybody scaling Jeremy, Big Squid RC. He did that DeLorean, which was an Eagle Moss 1/8 scale kit, and they converted it to RC. And I thought that was really cool because it's all metal, super, super detailed. So I signed up for, those are very expensive and it's a monthly subscription thing. I signed up for the Ecto 1, the 59 Cadillac hearse from the Ghostbusters. And I got about 6 months into it and I think they've gone out of business. I haven't gotten anything this year from them. And they send it to you in the most inconvenient way. So like you get this set, one tire and wheel. And then 6 months later you might get another tire and wheel. So I don't have enough of the body to even put the whole car together. I've got a hood, half an engine, front half of the chassis. I mean, it's terrible. And I'm in it for probably close to $1,000 because it's like $60 a month. And they send you all this extra stuff, but I'm not a huge Ghostbusters fan. I'm a 59 Cadillac fan. And I wanted to do, slammed rat rod, patina Cadillac, and all that with it. But unfortunately, it looks like they are no more. So I called customer service and got the runaround, but I've heard through other channels that they're not going to be making them anymore. So there's a lot of stuff for sale on eBay. And all this is beside the point. I had one wheel and tire. And I took it out and put it on a rat rod back before I moved out of my house. And it looked awesome. If you know some of the other rat rods, the number 3 started out, we had 1/8 scale model tires on the front, white walls. The other 2 pair of those have ended up on the Volks rod on the front. And I thought, they're expensive. Everything with this car was expensive, and now people think, they're trying to piece it together off of eBay, and everything's jacked up. So these tire and wheels cost $50 a piece, and I got a set of 4 of them for a rat rod build. I don't know if it'll be this one. I don't know if it'll be 10 years from now. Could put it on one of the old ones. It might look good on number 3. So I don't know what we're going to do. I do know number 3 does need a overhaul. That might be expensive, but I don't know. I'm getting sidetracked. We'll take these out and look at them today, and I'm hoping we can get this body wet sanded and getting the look right. Maybe that'll inspire some motivation here to pick a direction and go with it. So what we've got on here now, these I think are some kind of Traxxas, or no, this may be Kyosho. I don't even know what those are. I have 4 of them somehow. 2 used, very old, and 2 new ones. The back tire is, these were the old Traxxas. They came off some buggy, the wheels, and then these are those model car 1/8 scale slicks. It came on some dragster models, and those are available on eBay. They're very inexpensive. I think you can get like 6 of them for 25 bucks or something. I don't know what the going rate is. I think I bought 20 or something of them a while back, and it's just, you know, little here, little there. But I bought this car. It had these Traxxas drag tires. That was the plan they had. And it was going to be an open engine bay, scale engine, little skinnies up front, super giant slicks in the back. To me, that's just way too big. I like that the chrome's shinier than these other wheels, but that's just gigantic, and yeah, that's not going to work. And I mean, you could make a rat rod look like that, but it's not my style. So this one's a little more proportionate. The thing with those tires, though, they are a 2-inch wheel. They're 2-inch opening, so they will work on some 1/9 wheels, depending on if you use like a bead lock or anything. These, I don't know what size those wheels were. They seem to stay on there pretty well. I've had them for many years, so yeah. So let's take a look at what we got here from the Eagle Moss. So this is how it comes. It's all sealed up. It's got a Cadillac center cap. We've got a few small screws. We've got a hubcap, inner and outer wheel half. Now these aren't made for 12mm hexes. If you remember the green 5-window rat rod I did, those are Eagle Moss Jeep Willys wheels and tires. And they were made easy to make it work with RC, because we have the front axle. It's a semi-truck axle, runs on bearings. So that actually was perfect. It just slid over this, tightened the nut down, and it had the exact amount of slack in it, and it worked out fantastic. The rears, I actually just cut a slot in the back of the wheel, put it over the stud, the pin set into the wheel directly. It's worked perfect, no issues whatsoever. And it's been a while since I looked at my other one of these, which is buried in under my wall of boxes with all my other Eagle Moss parts, but I bought a set of 4 of these, and we're going to tear into it and look at it and see how hard these would be to mount. These tires are rubber, but they are very, very solid. There is almost no give in the sidewall. Very thick tire. So there's no need for foams or any of that. The wheel is actually super detailed. It's even got a valve stem. Got some sort of lug nut looking thing on it. But look at that. That's just fantastic. And then you can go a step further. You can line up your valve stem. Put on Cadillac center caps if you need some bling. I mean, how cool is that? It is a little tall, especially, and they're all 4 the same size. These are for 1/8 scale. So I don't know if they will work for this car specifically. We'll have to see. Alright guys, I got a bit of a dilemma. So these tires are going to be too big for this blue body. And I just can't get a vision for this body yet. I don't know why. I think we're going to go ahead and still sand it down. Look at some patina. See what kind of look we can get. Maybe that'll help us move forward with that. That's probably as far as that one's going to go for a little bit. But I think we're going to have to give number 3 some love, because those tires fit that body perfectly. Alright guys, let that dry overnight. I'm not going to weather it yet. I'm not sure I'm in love with this color combo. It's hard to tell because it's, so we haven't weathered it at all. It's just the sanding of the layers. It was more black when I started. There was very little red showing through, so the black layer was very thin, and I was hoping more of the black would come through. And you can see we've got a lot of marks. It's perfectly smooth. It is pretty nice, but you can see all the edges on the print. And I don't know, it's a little too much for me, so we'll wait and see. The back doors came out pretty good. Showed a little more restraint with those, but yeah, it sanded a lot easier than I thought it would. I thought since that paint had set for a month or so that it would, yeah, it would be a little tougher. So I started out with some 700 grit, just to kind of get it started, and then I went back with 1000, but I'd already done a little more than I intended with the 700, so it is what it is. But this is how it always goes. These bodies start out, every time I start a project, it's all over the place. You just got to see where the build goes. And right now, I put these wheels on it. These are the 2.2 Vanquish, and yeah, I did put all the wheels and tires on backwards. The tread's going the wrong way. I get it. I need to comment that 17 times. Everybody's real picky about the tread on these tires. It works either way. They're not very good on-road tread, but it's the only thing that would fit these 2.2 wheels. But got a lot of the basic stuff out of the way. So I got, rear axles, not much, just put some tires on it. But basically put the entire front suspension together. I'll show you a little bit more of that. So working with that front axle is a pain because you're trying to mock it up and stuff, and your tires are just flopping around. So you've got to get a tie rod in there, or a steering link of some kind. It's kind of hard. You have two options. You have this closer together set and this farther away set on these axles. And yeah, it just worked out. I had one of these new in the bag. This is RC four-wheel drive. I think it's off of Jalan 2. And I just put some 1mm spacers on each side and these off-brand metal rod ends that came with something I bought on eBay a long time ago. And you just got to play with it to find the right length. I got it, the toe end set pretty good. I'm happy with that. It'll be good enough for driving. It won't pull or anything, do anything crazy. And it's not as pertinent on these solid axles as it is, say, like a touring car or something. Your toe end, your caster has a lot more effect when you have double wishbone independent suspension. But this solid axle, you pretty much just don't need them pointed away from each other and you'll be fine. There's no camber adjustments on these, so you get what you get. But I got that all locked in. I went ahead and threw some rods on here. I'm not sure. This is how we'll set the wheelbase of the car, basically. You saw I notched out the rear of the body to get the axle up a little bit higher. It's still not quite as low as I would like. I would like it to be the right height, but it needs to travel. We need more for suspension travel. But I'm not ready to do that yet because we haven't touched the frame. We haven't made a full decision on tire and wheel. If we go with a bigger tire and wheel, then we'll definitely have to come up further into the body and cut more out. But I based a lot of that off of this chassis. And this chassis is built to the standards that I usually do, the same amount of height. And it works out perfect with this tire and wheel combo size because we can have plenty of suspension travel on the rear without hitting the frame and bottoming out. And it gives us room to mount shocks and everything at the right height away from the axle. So a lot of things left to figure out, but got the front end sorted. These RC four-wheel drive M3 Heim joints. I've scored some of those at my local hobby shop. They're usually out of stock. They're expensive, but they look a lot more realistic. I don't know that they're any tighter than the standard rod ends, but they look nicer. Looks a little more scale. Unfortunately, they wouldn't work on the front, so that's why I went with some different ones. But those are metal, so we're starting off with good stuff. That's a good sign to make this a little bit more permanent. One thing, too, these wheels have a 12mm hex. And I get asked all the time how I mount 12mm hex wheels to these semi-front axles because they're set up for bearings. Those other tires and wheels, wherever I have put them, you can see here they have a bearing in the front, bearing in the back, and they just slide right over. You tighten the nut all the way down, and it's perfect. So there's I think it's, oh Lord, is it Hoyfab on Shapeways makes an adapter to put a bearing inside of a 12mm hex adapter, and it fits on there. I haven't been able to find them again on the store. Shapeways, I was working with them for a while, and they changed their whole format and did away with all the stuff that they were doing with me. And they'd really been pushing the RC stuff, trying to get that organized. So now their website's kind of not organized. It's hard to find exactly what you're looking for on there. It's hard to narrow things down by RC related or just automotive related, and it's very a mess. But there are some good stuff on there. You just got to figure out how to find it. But what I'm using here, these are, let me grab one. RJ Speed or Bowlink. Back in the day we had these. These are just simple pan car, basic stuff. But these have a large body post that's threaded. Has them on the front and the hood. And it has a big nut. And that nut is 12 millimeter. And it's got a flange on the bottom. And you just screw those down and that's your body mount. And that's what I've used on these. This one has a probably a 1 mil thick washer. And then it has that RJ Speed body mount, which I think I drilled the threads out of. It's been on there for a while. I use those on several of the rat rods. Some of them have different things. Sometimes you can just take a regular 12 millimeter hex, get one of the aluminum ones or something, and drill it out. I think it's, I don't remember what size it is. I used to know that offhand, but it's been a minute. But yeah, there's lots of ways to do it. Depending on the wheel setup, it may or may not work. Sometimes it's too far in, like these have this internal beadlock screw. Sometimes that'll hit and you have to do some modifications to space it out. Sometimes you don't have enough room to get the lock to the nylon part of the lock nut. So there's just a lot of little things to look for with these front ends, but it can be done. It's not perfect, it's not riding on a bearing, it's just spinning plastic over metal, but it works. When you got the weight of the car on it, there's no rattle, there's hardly any slop in it. There's less slop in that than there is in my vintage Tamiya stuff, so it's not anything huge to worry about. But there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, so yeah. Just wanted to kind of touch on that. But this is how I do the front suspensions. It's super simple. I know a lot of people get blocked by this because they haven't built the semis, so they don't know how they go together. Or you haven't done, dealt with RC four-wheel drive stuff, so you don't understand how those axles and stuff work. But it's so simple. I had to drill out these holes. There's already threaded holes in here. This is the shock mount on the semi-truck. So you have a little shock that comes up from there. And a bolt goes in one side or the other. I don't remember which. Some of the axles I bought, Integy, and I've had Tamiya standard ones. These are custom machined aftermarket lowering axles. I like these because they give me basically the rod goes parallel with the chassis, and with the lowering part of it, it's 1 centimeter drop. It gives me the perfect ride height and puts the axle right where I want it. It's easy to deal with. They're $50 on eBay. That's the only place I've seen them for sale. And yeah, I mean, if you just search 1/14 scale semi-truck axles on eBay, and in the RC category, they'll come up. You'll see them. Most of the ones aren't shiny that are stock. These are always bare CNC'd aluminum. They're pretty good quality. But what I was saying, those screw holes, they don't go all the way through. So you saw me drill out the unthreaded end, and then I threaded in some scale hardware and got it all the way through, and then just screwed the rods on to that. M3 rod, M3 screw, works out perfect. And then if I want to lengthen the front end, I can just put a longer rod, or I can even space it out with the heim joints up here and add spacers, or spacers up here, or whatever I need to do to get the exact wheelbase that I want out of the car. So right now, with the way I'm looking at it, we're looking at the axle being right by the chassis. So you can kind of see here, we've got the axle, or the suspension will mount right there like that. We'll split the chassis rail in the middle once we finalize where everything goes. I do that last because, just like this, mounting the suspension, I may want it here, I may want it further back, I may have to get a longer rod, but we can drill straight through, and that way all of our mounting points for suspension, motor mounts, whatever we end up doing, will be even from side to side. Because otherwise, I mean, I've never had precise enough tooling to be able to take two pieces and drill the holes in the same spot, basically. So I do it like that, drill press, drill them straight through, and they're parallel and even, and your car will track straight, and you won't have any issues with that. But that's along the lines of what I'm thinking here. So that's kind of, this is just generic rat rod building phase one. We're not set on the body, we're not set on the tires and wheels, we're not set on the wheelbase, we're not set on anything yet. It's all still fluid, and it can be as long or as short if we decide to run with the hood. There is going to be a problem with the hood. The one thing I don't like about this body file, see the curve of this body, it really curves under, and the hood does it tremendously. The hood is almost fuselage style. So that does get in the way of our front suspension with the height of the body on the chassis that I'm looking at. So that hood, if we do run it, one, these fenders probably will not work because they will not set low enough, and two, all of this is getting into our suspension. So May have to cut all this off below the fender, see if that'll work. But again, I'm not 100% sold on the fenders, and that's the only hood I have for this print, unfortunately. I don't have a separate grill or anything for it, so it's all tentative. But that's how we build it, because we don't really know what direction we're going until we find ourselves there. But now we're to the fun part. Now we've kind of got more of a solid idea, and now we can do all the mock-ups. And this is where the inspiration will come in, because I've got different motors, different grills. I don't have a whole lot of stuff right at the moment. I have this little 4-banger flathead out of that 1/8 scale Jeep Willys, and that's the grill off actually my first Ratrod. It's 32. It's been broken over the years, taking it to events and stuff. It was a fragile body, but I got the grill. I got all the pieces for it. I just put that up there, just kind of brainstorm some ideas. We can lay it up there with the fenders. We can try different engines, run an open engine bay. We can paint the body again, come back and see what we like. I know it looks almost mango-ish, cartoonish looking with the way it is right now, but once we go over that with the rust streaks, I think it would look pretty good, but I'm not 100% set on the color yet, or the wheel and tire, or anything. It's all up in the air. I don't think I have any other engines easily accessible at the moment. I have one of the giant diesel engines, but now I put it up. I think I have another flathead V8, like on the farm truck build, farm truck Ratrod. That is a 3D print that I used to get from a guy that doesn't print anymore. And yeah, that might be a good fit for the size of this, because this is kind of a small, narrow body. But we'll have to see. A lot of things taken into consideration, but to the fun part now, we can just start playing with stuff and see where we end up. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this installment, guys. I feel like it's been kind of a long video, but just Ratrod basics. But yeah, I'm going to do some brainstorming and digging around. That's another thing that I do a lot of. I'll spend hours on eBay looking for engine models and things, seeing what's new, seeing what's old and forgotten about, trying to find something cool to use for this. Ideally, RC stuff works. You know, scale designs by Mr. Comedy, any of his engines would work. You can put the 540 motor in it, pair it up to an R4 RC4 drive or whatever kind of scale transmission, and yeah, have an actual functioning scale drive line. But I like to try to find something different, just like this flathead 4-cylinder might work. There's no way to get a RC engine in it, so that would completely depict the direction we have to go with the chassis. Putting a gearbox inside with the motor, our driveline angles and stuff would be affected by that because the motor would be so far to the back. There's just so many things to take into consideration with it. And we could go a completely opposite direction with this and go with you know, something more modern in it. And you just never know. But there's always constantly new stuff being developed, especially with a 3D printed world. And you never know what we might run across. But get out there and do something fun. Get out there and try something different. Don't be afraid to give stuff a try. And just keep a scale. I'll see y'all in the next video.